Step 2 of the sequential evaluation process, the process that all of us go through when we're in a SSD or SSI claim, and proving that we are disabled. Okay, so we did step number 1. Here's step number 2. Is the individual's physical or mental condition severe? So first, there has to be a condition. That's actually known as a medically determinable impairment, MDI, medically determinable impairment. Once you find, or once the SSA finds that there is at least one MDI, the question is it severe? There has to be a severe one. An individual must have a medically determinable physical or mental impairment that is severe and meets the duration requirements. So by their definition, severe means it must interfere with basic work-related activities. That's kind of a big old expression right there. It doesn't mean it has to prevent basic work activities, but it must interfere. So it could be something wrong with this hand. It's going to affect work activities with this hand. It might not prevent them with this hand, but it might mean something that requires 6 hours of this hand is only going to be able to get 2 because of the impairment to this hand. That would likely be interfering with basic work-related activities and therefore severe, just by way of example. Then there's the duration requirement. This one kind of knocks people around a little bit. To pass step 2, the MDI that is now severe must be expected to last at least 12 months or has already lasted 12 months. So it's either going to last, or it has, or it's expected to. And that the finding of expectation has got to be medically found. So it's not just going to be presumed, with proper treatment that would happen. So looking at the medical condition, what the medical records say is how they're going to determine if something that has not lasted 12 months as an MDI that is severe will actually last that long. That kind of duration requirement goes towards something that I talk about sometimes about strategically filing your application. Do you file the day you get hurt? Do you wait a little bit? Do you file the day you stop working? Or do you wait a little bit? Doesn't mean you're not going to assert that day retrospectively as the date you became disabled, but do you file that week? I would step out. In my opinion, it is often better to wait a bit, get your ducks in a row. There's so many instances where there is no way a medical provider is going to hint that a duration is going to be ongoing, where a fact finder with the SSA could conclude that it's going to be 12 months, come to that impression. But if you waited a certain amount of months and more treatment was going on and more things are discussed and future surgeries then it's possible, and it happens a lot, that it is going to, it can be found to have met the duration requirement despite the fact that it hasn't existed for 12 months, because it clearly is expected to exist for 12 months in a severe capacity where it's interfering with that basic work. Obviously, if any impairments that are not severe or do not meet that durational requirement are not going to pass step 2. If you have none, you won't pass step 2. You only need one to pass step 2. And if you do, then you go to step 3. So we will get into step 3 next time. So remember, an MDI, medically determinable impairment, and if you have them, so that's like a diagnosis, basically, that's diagnosed acceptably in the medical records, then the question is it severe? Neither one of those are very hard. That's the step 2 is probably the simplest step ever. Probably more simple than step one, which can actually be a little complicated sometimes when you have a working person. But anyway, okay, step two, severe and durational, medically determinable impairments. Talk to you later. Have a great night. Good morning. Okay, so we're talking about the sequential evaluation process for adults when you have a Social Security disability or SSI claim. Now, you are either perhaps have just watched one of the individual segments on one of the 5 steps, and this will be an overview of what all 5 steps are, just so you know at what place you're in. Or you're just coming here for the first time and you are just going to learn right here what the 5 steps are without the details attached to them. So I will try to connect all the other ones to this. So if you need to pop to number 3 and find more details about it, you can, or 4 or 5 or 1 or 2. Okay, so this is just going to be the rundown of the 5 steps and their names and what they are. Super quick. Okay, so when you first file a claim, the first step that the SSA has to determine is, are you working SGA? If you are working SGA, and that's a term of art, there are playlists on this channel about SGA. If you are not disabled. They stop and your case is over. You lose. If you are not performing SGA, the work level of SGA, so this would include people who have stopped working altogether, of course, you get to go to step 2. Step 2 is, do you have a severe medically determinable impairment? One could think of that as a severe diagnosis, perhaps, although I'm sure it's not exactly that, but an MDI would have to be diagnosed, and it has to be diagnosed in the medically acceptable manner. And all of that is through your medical records. So that's where all the medical boom, boom, boom treatment is really important to get to that point. If you do not have a severe medically determinable impairment, even if you have medically determinable impairments, because who doesn't at least have small ones, if you do not have a severe one, just one, you will be denied. Stop, you're out the door, the case is over. If you do have at least one severe MDI, you get to go to step 3. Step 3 looks at your severe MDI and all your other MDIs, severe and non-severe, although it would be a severe one that would have to lend itself to a yes here. Does it meet or equal a listing? They're referring to the Blue Book listings. You can find them at ssa.gov. And if it meets the details within the description of that listing, of that kind of impairment, you will, if yes, be found disabled at step 3. Game over. You're done in terms of you just won the hardest battle of proving that you are medically disabled. Then they would go on to anything non-medical, like, well, did you even have the insurance? Or if it's SSI, are you poor enough? That's at a different office. But the big hard battle that everyone fights sometimes for years on just ended for you if you meet or equal a listing at step 3. Step 4. You go to step 4 if you're not found disabled at step 3. So that's a little switch, right? If you do not meet a listing, before they go to step 4, they're going to find out what your RFC is. What is your residual functional capacity to work? And that is a whole term of art, and the details are pretty complicated. You go on to step 4 with that RFC assessment in hand, and the question is, can that person, despite those limitations, given his RFC assessment, is there other work? Can he do his past relevant work? Past relevant work is a term of art also. It's got some tests that it has to meet to be considered past relevant work. So you might want to look up that playlist for that. If he can do his prior relevant work, any of those jobs that fall within that category, not disabled. Boom, end of story. Your case loses at step 4. If step 4 finds it, can't do his past relevant work, that is a little too arduous in one way or another, then you get the privilege of going to step 5. Step 5 is there any other work in the national or regional economy that this person can do? Work that exists in substantial numbers. If there is other work you can do of sufficient numbers, certain occupations, you are not disabled. You lose at step 5. That is a very common place to lose, as is step 4. If you cannot do any other work, they can't provide, and that burden is on them at this point, any other jobs you can do in sufficient numbers, then yes, you are disabled and you win at step 5. Okay, more details on 1 through 5, see at the end. I will put up I guess I'll put up a button for number 1. From number 1, you can see buttons for number 2. From 2, you can see a button for number 3. So they will go in sequential. If at the end you click on the button that should be in the upper corner there. Yeah, I think that's the only way I can really do it, but I hope it helps. All right. And if you have any questions, just leave them in comments and we'll talk about it later. All right. Bye.